Okay, so here's another story I wanted to talk to you about. Well, you wrote about this in your Substack. The U.S. national debt is rising by $1 trillion about every 100 days. That's from CNBC.
Yeah.
The U.S. national debt is rising by $1 trillion. So that means, well, here. So here's your Substack where you wrote a little bit about it. It says this is just some of it. The national debt, which surpassed $34 trillion several years ahead of pre-pandemic projections, signals a dire mismanagement of our economic policies. The Congressional Budget Office in January 2020 did not expect this threshold to be reached until 2029.
Yeah.
We're there already.
Mm-hmm.
This acceleration is not just a number. It's indicative of a deeper systemic problem that threatens the very fabric of our economy. The national debt might not seem like a burden on the U.S. economy at the moment, given the continued willingness of investors to lend money to the federal government. Now, let me ask you about that. Now, I say that the United States, it's a fiat currency. They just print it. But then I see things like where you said people have to lend it to them. So which is it? Does the government print the money or do they have to borrow the money?
There's different versions of how money is created. One long time ago, Bill Clinton was president. He wanted to help folks that weren't perfect credit scores own a home. So he created fractional lending. So banks can lend 10 times the amount of money they're sitting on, as best I understand it. So if a bank's sitting on $1 billion, it can loan $10 billion for home and auto loans, right? So that's creating money out of thin air. They don't have 10 billion, they have $1 billion. They can loan 10 times the amount of money they're sitting on. The Federal Reserve, if it's helping, create liquidity, as it's coming up in the news again today, that must mean there's financial needs by, conglomerates around the world, or just massive institutions, or even smaller institutions. Wherever the dominoes are, they want to keep from falling over. They're going to create funding for those entities without congressional approval. When the Congress wants to spend money on its bills, it has to pass, a law that allows the debt ceiling to be
right.
It's just so ludicrous. Let's pass a law, raise the debt ceiling again. It's obnoxious because they never respect it. They never say, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to just have to deal with the tough stuff of things going unpaid for. We're all going to get together and solve this. We're going to have to discuss it. Instead, they just raise the debt ceiling, print more money. The Federal Reserve creates the money for them.
And the Federal Reserve is a private institution.
Yes, it is.
So I always thought that the Federal Reserve was part of the United States government. It's not. It's private.
Just like Federal Express is not part of the mail system.
Yeah.
They use that
That's right.
word.
And so the Federal, exactly.
Uh-huh.
It's funny.
It's so good.
So the Federal Reserve is allowed by law to be the ones to print money, and then they lend it to the United States government. That's how this is working?
Lending is a cute term.
Oh, okay.
But they're providing it.
Uh-huh.
So let's say if we were the ones, the government, the people in government, all, the elected officials, owed us this $34 trillion. What if we said, pay us or go, right? So if you quit paying your mortgage, what does the bank say? Pay us or go, right? So this is where the checks and balances ends. There is no checks and balances on this being debt. Debt is repaid. $34 trillion is never getting repaid, folks.
Right.
And $1 trillion every 100 days is more of a sign. And, we can be angry about how it's all gone, but now it's so dire. We need to start looking at how do we defend ourselves against what might be coming. And history seems to show examples of this reserve currency rising and falling into failure. The $1 trillion every 100 days is a sign that things are progressing much worse than any of the brightest minds in Washington or Wall Street were able to project. The needs growing faster than their understanding of how bad the needs are.
So them basically inventing $1 trillion every 100 days. How does that not lead to inflation? That has to, right?
Of course, the whole thing's been inflation. Yeah, the whole thing. It's like, we could talk about this other piece. I'll save it in the Substack. The reason, the Grand Canyon size hole, what created that in our finances. We can talk about that in a second. But yes, the government's paying bills. They're not building ski resorts in Austria or condos on the moon.
Right.
So where are the bills coming from? That's the question.
A lot of it's coming from the military-industrial complex. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So this lending facilitates ongoing government spending on various programs without the need to raise taxes.
Yeah.
So that's that whole thing of. So I had this woman on our show, Stephanie Kelton, and she wrote a book about why now I'm blanking on the term that she uses about modern monetary policy theory. That's
MMT.
it. MMT. That's it. And she explained that, when they pass a law to go pay for something, let's say, hey, we want to send $150 billion to Ukraine. They don't go raise taxes to pay for that. They just print it.
Yeah.
And they just send it.
Yeah.
And and she's saying, so I don't even know why they collect taxes anymore if taxes are completely uncoupled from what they're spending. Right. And so that's what this says. The lending facilitates government spending on programs without raising taxes to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, however, the reality is built on a precarious foundation. The dollars created out of thin air since 2008 have averted a depression, but at what cost? What is that cost?
The destruction of the currency. So sometimes how I explain to my retirees, it's like you have financial oxygen on your back, like a tank of financial oxygen you sip off of, and it allows you to go wherever you want. You bring that with you, right? You go on a cruise ship, you go visit the kids, fishing in Alaska, pay your bills. And so what if that oxygen tank were to run out of air?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing next? You're a greeter at Walmart? Not to be, just
Right.
to say that most people don't want to be standing when they're older all day long,
Right.
or working at all, right? They did that work. They saved that money. Others seem to be willing to put that saved money at risk. So the ultimate threat is that the currency is destroyed. And so therefore the values within that currency, it would make sense to me, would disappear with it. And the one calculation I can give to just help people visualize what that might be is that, if the dollar's worth 100 cents and a home's worth 20 grand, and today a home's worth 440 grand and the dollar's worth 3 cents, where was the change agent? We just destroyed the dollar, flooded the world with money. It ended up in real estate. And now that same $20,000 house is $440,000 today. Because we didn't,
Right.
there's not a billion people that live here now.
Right.
We only have 40% more people here than when we cut free of the gold standard.
So it's the exact same wood, brick, and mortar, but now it's just worth. So that means you're saying that a big part of that is the devaluation of the dollar.
Yeah, destruction of it. Destruction of its buying power. There's two measurements on it. There's how strong is the currency against the euro or the yen or the pound. And then there's the buying power of a currency. The buying power, the dollar, again, has no value unless it's backed by something of value. Back it by oil. The petrodollar was an attempt to do that, and it allowed a lot more flexibility for the government to wield bigger financial armament against the world, control the world, grow the military, just, take over. The Monroe Doctrine on absolute steroids. But living within the gold standard, then you're living within your means, and you have to live right size, and you have to be honest about things. You have to confront issues as a team. And I wanted to point out, I think the last time we heard about taxes was when Bush was running for re-election, and earlier he had said no new taxes. Read my lips.
Wow, George Bush the first, you mean? Yeah.
And didn't the whole world understand, certainly the part that supports political action, don't ever raise taxes. Just print the money.
Yes.
Just print the money.
Yes. And raising taxes is political death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. Maybe it's $2.5–3 trillion a year they get in taxes, and they're spending, like Biden's budget was around $6 trillion. So they're obviously printing a lot more money than they take in. Why can't they just come and say, here's the problems, let's get together and solve it, America? There's a lot of bright minds outside of Washington that are solving problems every day. Everyone in this room solved some problems today successfully, right?
Right.
Why can't Washington do that? That's not their track record.
So so they're just going to keep doing this because they don't have any other ideas, right? So this is just going to keep going on, and it's going to keep devaluing the dollar. And you're saying that we're at the end of that cycle, right? So the dollar was worth at least 50 cents in 2000. Is that what you said?
56 cents, yeah.
And now it's worth, according to your calculations, somewhere around 4 cents.
3 to 4 cents, yeah.
And so we can't. So there, at some point, this stops working.
Yeah. So modern monetary theory, from my understanding, and there's a good little write-up about it on Wikipedia. It kind of explains that the idea is the government, that money's a commodity, And the government creates that commodity, and it can create as much of that commodity as it wants to.
Well, technically, yes, I guess.
Yeah. It's
but
like
there's a consequence to doing so.
Yeah. Scientifically, I could eat half of a Snickers bar today, the other half tomorrow, and the other half the next day, and on and on. And I would, until the atomic level, I'm still eating a Snickers bar. But it doesn't satisfy my hunger.
Right. Okay.
So it's valueless, but it still exists. So, I mean, evidenced by the fact that printing money to pay bills causes things to become more expensive, causes people in America working here need to be paid a higher wage to be able to afford working. And then those jobs go overseas for cheaper labor. And we just keep digging this hole bigger and bigger and bigger for ourselves. But, well, not really for ourselves. The government's doing it to us. And it just guts the soul of the country. Like if a currency was the steel in your financial system, the metal, the girders that everything hangs off of, the stuff behind the drywall you can't see. So if the steel in your financial system is the currency, and you build this incredible shining city on a hill, as Reagan once called it, today the steel in that financial system, in the girders, is 97% weaker than when it was built. That's what makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from folks that think otherwise or could prove that I'm incorrect in my assumptions. I'm always willing to learn. I am not the oracle of everything. I've certainly just read a ton about it because I want to be right. I want to be able to say things that matter to folks and help them along their way.
Okay. So, and you know what's weird is that this never comes up like at a press conference with a politician. This never comes up. There's never, like, hey, what are they doing about that $1 trillion they just printed in the last 100 days? And what are you going to do about the next trillion in the next 100 days? This never gets talked about, doesn't get talked about. I mean, I don't watch CNBC, but it certainly doesn't get talked about in any other news show.
No. To give credibility to the size of this number, right? I talked to a great guy earlier today. He was spreading fertilizer on his farm in Kansas. Said his dad's 93. I said, you're lucky to still have him around. His dad has lived 3 billion seconds.
Oh, right.
1 billion seconds is 31 years.
Right.
So if everything we pretty much do on Earth is human scale, right? Planes don't hold 1,000 people, doorways aren't 10 feet tall. Couches aren't 20 feet long. Everything's kind of at a human scale. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. Now, we've been doing finances with precious metals and barter and exchange for 5,000 years? So they're creating 31,000 years of debt every 100 days. 34 trillion is a little over 1 million years of money. And that might sound like a preschooler's way to look at finances, but how else do we internalize how horrific it is to create $1 trillion in debt in 100 days?
So the metrics I've heard is that 1 million seconds is like 7 days or something like that, or 11 days. And then 1 billion seconds is 31 years.
Right.
And so 1 trillion is how long?
31,000 years. And another way to look at it is in $100 bills stacked one on top of the other. It's 690-mile high stack of money. So if I laid that stack of $1 trillion worth of $100 bills out on the highway near you and you got in your car and you're driving at 70 miles an hour, you would need to drive for 10 hours to pass $1 trillion in $100 bills, stacked bill on top of bill laid alongside the highway. 700 miles long.
And they're doing that every 100 days.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, I really do think we're at the end. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and everybody can do what they want. But I'm nervous about the stock market. I took all my money out of it.
Yeah,
I did. I really did do that. And the people I've talked to, not just you, but other people, have said that's not dumb. That's a smart idea. I'm putting a lot of my money, my retirement money, into precious metals, gold and silver. Why? Because lots of people I trust with money, Max Kaiser's one of them. He's a big Bitcoin guy, and he told me gold is a good hedge against inflation, and gold is a good hedge against the stock market. And so did Carol Roth said that. And then also, who's the guy who wrote the book from Maui, my friend? Why am I blanking on his name? Ed Dowd. So they all said this. So I'm with them. And so I'm putting that into this. And I decided to partner with our sponsor to do this, Colonial Metals Group. They're helping me set up a secure self-directed IRA where I have access to my assets no matter what the stock market and no matter what the government's doing. So let a team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you protect your family's future. We've put together a special offer for our audience. Get this offer. Listen to this. You click on the link in the description below or call a special 800 number and you'll receive a safe and up to $10,000 in free silver. Then the number to call is 888-910-1419. 888-910-1419 or go to colonialsmetalgroup.com/Jimmy-Dore-show. Hey, come see us live on tour in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh, El Paso, and San Antonio, Texas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.